بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة الأبدية على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم my beloved ones ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, we are going to discuss the Tawaf, al-Mufradah, I mean Salat al-Tawaf. So we stopped yesterday on Salat al-Tawaf. But as usual, we'll just try to give you a brief of Salat al-Tawaf, and then inshallah we'll try to discuss the other issues. So yeah, so one should not separate Salat al-Tawaf from the Tawaf more than 10 minutes. Uh, Now, if you recall in the rules of Salat, men and women, they cannot pray side by side. It invalidates Salat of both of them. So how in that crowded area, if you see this image, you see that men are beside women and women are beside men. And where did it go? Yeah, this one. You see this black, they're Abbas, they're very women. And there are guys beside them. You see? So what will happen to the Salat? Because both of their salat can become invalid. So, so in Masjid al-Haram, in there's an exceptional case. So Sayyidi Sistani Damadullah says, اعتبار عدم محاذاة المرأة للرجل وعدم تقدم عليه. The requirement that they should not be on the same level, I mean same line, unless if there was a good distance between them, or she should not be ahead of the guy during the salah. This kind of rule does not apply in this crowded area. When there's a crowd, so all these kind of things are permissible. So that's alhamdulillah something good to know, that yeah, that men and women, they cannot there's no problem. Let me just go and pull the Salat al-Tawaf. So many slides on the Tawaf. Yeah. So Salat al-Tawaf is the third obligation, he says, and there are two rakats. وهي ركعتان يؤتى بهما عقيب الطواف. Two rakats, they are performed after the Tawaf. وصورتها كصلاة الفجر. And the form of the Salat of Tawaf is similar to Salat al-Fajr. لكنه مخير. However, he has an option. There's an option to either pray it loudly, like surahs, في قراءتها بين الجهر والإخفاء. So he can say it with voice or he can say it silently. There is surahs. ويجب الاتيان بها قريبا من مقام إبراهيم عليه السلام. So it has to be as close as possible. So close as possible could be sidewise, okay, could be longwise. So if I just let's see if this is the for example the Kaaba, and this is Maqam Ibrahim. So as close as could be here, 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 and here, here as well. Like all this radius can be considered the closest to Maqam Ibrahim. Sayyid al-Khuy, some other maraja, they allow this. Sayyid Sistani said no. وَالْأَظْهَارُ لُزُومُ الْإِتْيَانِ بِهَا خَلْفَ الْمَقَامِ. More apparently to say this Sistani, apparent from the evidences, khalf. That means if you have a spot here and a spot here, then choose this one because this is behind Maqam Ibrahim. So the behindness is necessary for Sayyid Sistani. The closeness as long as it's behind. So if you have a spot here and a spot here, obviously choose the spot here because that's the closest. So for him is the closest. So when you are done with your tawaf, try to find a spot that Maqam Ibrahim is exactly in front of you. So if you see from behind the Maqam Ibrahim, like one, two, three, four, five people at least, because it's in a way that three people can stand behind. And if you add four and five, they would be also considered behind. Uh, but more than that, this way and this way, it will not be considered behind Maqam Ibrahim. So one should be observant of this issue, that to pray behind Maqam Ibrahim, okay? And not sides behind Maqam Ibrahim. No, like behind Maqam Ibrahim. Good. We saw the images. I'm not going to go back to the images. Let's see the rulings. فإن لم يتمكن من ذلك فالأحوط وجوبا أن يجمع بين الصلاة عنده في أحد الجانبين وبين الصلاة خلفه بعيدا عنه. Let's say if it is not, this is like we said Kaaba and this is Maqam Ibrahim. Let's say he could not find in this radius close to him, but he found a spot here. Okay, so he says, okay, no problem. You can pray here, and if you found a spot very far away, so pray 2 rakat here and 2 rakat here. You can do like that. You combine. فَالْأَحْوَطُ وُجُوبًا, and this is a precautionary rule. So based on the obligatory precaution, one should combine between salah from the sides, one of the sides, and salah behind but far away. So he had found a spot all the way far. No problem, pray here. Then go there as close as possible. And even if you find on the side and not here, so pray, because this is Maqam Ibrahim and this is the side of it. Okay. So he says you can do like that. بعيدا عنه ومع تعذر الجمع يكفي بالممكن منهما. And it's a precautionary rule. How if it is difficult? Like for example, Hajj seasons, it's so packed that for you to go from here to here, it might take more than 10 minutes. And remember, you have a 10 minutes gap. So the first thing you will do is pray here on this side, because this is Hajj al-Aswad. Once you come, you just pray. If you can find here, okay. Find here, okay. Find here, okay. But very far away, then you can pray here first, and then go all the way wherever farthest you can find a spot. But the Maqam Ibrahim would be in front of you. Pray there. So if you do like that, you did a precautionary measure. However, if you cannot, then do whatever you can. It is okay, and this would be more preferred, because this is the time between the tawaf and coming to this spot is less than 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes. That's very important for our mu'mineen to know, that not to keep a huge gap between salat tawaf and salat tawaf. Yes. ومع تعذرهما معا يصلي في أي مكان في المسجد. Let's say neither here, neither here, neither here, neither here, he cannot find. Okay, fine. Pray here. Pray here. Pray here. But the closest to Maqam Ibrahim is the best. So Maqam Ibrahim is here. So try to make your radius farther and farther. Pray here. Pray here. So there's no problem. So he says, if somebody is unable to pray, either on the side or either on the behind or combined, then that person can pray wherever he wants from the Masjid al-Haram, a sacred mosque. However, the closest is the closest spot is to be chosen. So if we can choose like this, like parallel to Hajj al-Aswad, as we said, if you can choose a spot here, then don't go here. If you can choose here, then don't go here. If you can choose here, then don't go here. So closest possible is the best. فالأقرب إلى المقام على الأحوط. Okay. So this is what he's trying to say here. Let me just, yeah, stretch this a bit so that we can have the whole loading on one page. Later on, we can do the translation. Yeah. ومع تعذرهما معا, either behind or either by side was there's no way you could do that. A person was unable to perform, neither here, neither on the side, like behind or side was not possible. Okay. Neither the closest. So you can choose wherever you want, as close as possible to Maqam Ibrahim. Al-aqrab lil-aqrab lil-maqam. This is recommended precaution. Even if you go farther, that's fine. Because the main thing was what? Behind Maqam Ibrahim. Or as close as possible. If that's missed, then wherever you pray, it's recommended precaution to pray as close as possible. Uh, What happens if after some time you notice, oh, the crowd is become less? وَلَوْ تَيَسَّرَتْ لَهُ إِعَادَةُ الصَّلَاةِ, if it was possible for him to repeat the salat خلف مقام إبراهيم قريبا منه بعد ذلك, close to Maqam Ibrahim afterwards. Let's say afterwards he was passing by, said, oh, there's a good spot behind Maqam Ibrahim. So he says you don't have to repeat it. Okay. بعد ذلك إلى أن يضيق وقت السعي, because what happens? You have to do Safa and Marwa, Sa'i. So should I go and do the Salat of Tawaf? Because Sa'i, if you have done Tawaf in the morning, the same day you have to do the Sa'i, as we're going to mention. So the time is getting narrowed. Let's say you did Tawaf and 2 rakat Tawaf and went home to rest. And you said, I'll come back later on to do Sa'i. So when you came back to do Sa'i, Safa and Marwa, and before the day ends, because if you do the Sa'i in the Tawaf in morning, you have to finish it before the end. I mean, you cannot delay to the next day. So here, ولو تيسرت له إعادة الصلاة خلف المقام قريبا منه بعد ذلك إلى أن يضيق وقت السعي أعادها على الأحب. So إلى أن يضيق وقت السعي, that the time of the sa'i between Safa and Marwa becomes narrowed, because you have to finish the salat before the sa'i. You already did salat, but your salat was not on the spot which is required. So he says, if it's going to narrow, you have to do this salat and then do the sa'i. So he says it's recommended precaution to repeat the 2 rakat salat behind Maqam Ibrahim, as long as it does not tighten the time of the sa'i. Otherwise, then you will have to repeat the whole tawaf, and it can become a messy situation. هذا في طواف الفريضة. This is for the obligatory tawaf. وأما في الطواف المستحب, and as for the mustahab tawaf, recommended tawaf, which is wherever you go, فيجوز الاتيان بصلاة في أي موضع من المسجد اختيارا. Wherever you want to pray for salat, tawaf mustahab, you can. You don't have to pray behind Maqam Ibrahim. Okay, this is repetition. Recommended tawaf. A few rulings. What if somebody intentionally abandons the salat of tawaf? Obviously, his hajj will be invalid. And as we mentioned, there should not be a great gap. Al-ahwat luzuman, on the basis of obligatory precaution. One should proceed to the salat of tawaf immediately after tawaf in a way that one should not leave a commonly considered gap between salat and tawaf. So what is the commonly considered gap? So they mention it as a 10 minutes gap, not more than 10 minutes. I think salat al tawaf should. Remember yesterday we mentioned that somebody doing tawaf from the second floor or the first floor, whatever floor, as long as the Kaaba is above that floor, at least one span of the Kaaba is above the ground of that floor. We said that the only problem is not with the tawaf, because if this is the Kaaba and this is where you're walking, so Kaaba is above, okay, and this is where you're walking, so there's not a problem. The problem is how much time will it take you to come down and do the salat behind Maqam Ibrahim? That's the question. Yeah. So he said one should not leave a gap between the salat of tawaf and the tawaf. Ruling number 329. If somebody forgets, so intentionally invalidates, unintentionally. And when did he remember? He remembered after the sa'i, okay? وذكرها بعد الإتيان بالأعمال المترتبة عليه. So after Salat al-Tawaf, there is sa'i. After sa'i, there is taqsir. So, and after that, there's Tawaf al-Nisa. So he says that, halas, you forgot, perform it wherever you remember. But what about sa'i and the taqsir? That's fine. He says, إذا نسي صلاة الطواف, if somebody forgets, forgetfulness, it's not intentional. وذكرها بعد الإتيان excuse me, وذكرها, and he remembered it بعد الإتيان بالأعمال المترتبة عليها, after performing the actions which are depending on the performance of Salat al-Tawaf. That means in a sequence, okay? كالسعي, such as sa'i, أتى بها, he should bring Salat al-Tawaf. But should we redo all the things he did after, like sa'i and taqsir? No. ولم تجب إعادة تلك الأعمال بعد أن كانت وإن كانت بعدها وإن كانت الأحوط استحبابا الإعادة. So repeating is not required. Like, should he repeat the sa'i and taqsir? No. No need. Just pray the salat. If you had forgotten and you remembered, just pray your salat, salat of tawaf. So, كالسعي أتى بها ولم تجب, and it would not be obligatory upon him إعادة تلك الأعمال, to repeat those deeds or rituals which were done after it, obviously, which depends on salat al-tawaf. Even though repeating is a recommended precaution. وإن كانت إعادة الأحوط استحبابا. نعم إذا ذكرها في أثناء السعي وأتى بالصلاة خلف المقام قطعه وأتى بالصلاة خلف المقام. Let's say you're doing Safa and Marwah. From Safa you're going to Marwah. From Marwah you're going to Safa. You're doing the sa'i, walk between Mount Safa and Mount Marwah. And you remember, I got to pray 2 rakat salat of tawaf. How did I forget? Blah, blah, blah. Says, go back, break the sa'i. Break the sa'i between Safa and Marwah. Go back, perform your salat behind Maqam Ibrahim. And after that, you can come and complete the sa'i from wherever you left. Complete the sa'i from wherever you left. Ata bis-sa'i haythuma qata'a. Wherever he had discontinued the sa'i. He doesn't need to redo the sa'i entirely. He can just continue from wherever he stopped. وإذا ذكر بعد خروجه من مكة فالأحوط لزوما الرجوع إليها في محلها وإذا لم يستلزم ذلك مشقة. So if he remembers it after leaving Makkah, okay, ذكر بعد خروجه من مكة, An obligatory precaution is for him to come back to Makkah. Just for offering 2 rakat Salat al-Tawaf? Yes, just for offering 2 rakat Salat al-Tawaf. وَالْإِتْيَانِ بِهَا فِي مَحَلِّهَا, and to perform it in its place, in its position, in its location. إِذَا لَمْ يَسْتَلْزِمْ ذَلِكَ مَشَقَّةً, like coming back to Makkah and performing this tawaf, okay? I mean, Salat al-Tawaf, which was missed or forgotten. It is not something, if it is not going to cause any difficulty and hardship, then one should do it as an obligation. But what if, yes, what if it is associated with the difficulty and hardship going back to Makkah? Okay, so we are here talking about somebody left Makkah and then he needs to go back to perform Salat al-Tawaf. This is Makkah. This is where he's going. Obviously, if he's already from Jeddah airport into the airplane, he can't come back. If he can come back without any difficulty and hardship, then he needs to come back. Okay? If he can come back, then he has to come back without difficulty and hardship. Otherwise, if it's going to cause too much difficulty and hardship, then he is not required to come back and he can pray from wherever he remembers. وَإِذَا ذَكَرَهَا بَعْدَ خُرُوجِهِ مِنْ مَكَّةِ, if he remembers it, it's what? Salat al-Tawaf. After exiting Makkah, فَالْأَحْوَطُ جُوبًا, then based on the obligatory precaution, لَهُ الرُّجُوعُ وَالْإِتْيَانِ بِهَا فِي مَحَلِّهَا, and he can perform it in its place where he is required to, if there was no difficulty and hardship. وَإِلَّا, if there was difficult, going back to Makkah was a difficult situation, being in Ihram and reaching the hotel and this and that, there are a couple of obstacles which might prevent a person from going to Makkah immediately or for certain circumstances. Yes. وَإِذَا ذَكَرَ بَعْدَ خُرُوجِهِ مِنْ مَكَّةِ, if he remembers it after exiting Makkah, فَالْأَحْوَطُ جُوبًا لَهُ الرُّجُوعُ, then on the basis of obligatory precaution, he should come back, وَالْإِتْيَانِ بِهَا فِي مَحَلِّهَا, and to perform it in its place, which is behind Maqam Ibrahim. Okay, so this is إِذَا لَمْ يَسْتَلْزِمْ ذَلِكَ مَشَقَّةً, if it was not associated with difficulty and hardship. وَإِنْ كَانَ مُتَمَكِّنًا وَإِلَّا, otherwise, if it is going to cause difficulty and hardship, then khalas, you don't need to go Makkah. Going Makkah is going to cause difficulty and hardship. Just pray wherever you have remembered. ولا يجب عليه الرجوع لأدائها في الحرم وإن كان متمكنا من ذلك. You don't have to go back into the haram to perform it even if you're able to do so. And then we have حكم التارك لصلاة الطواف جهلا حكم الناسي. Somebody left Salat al-Tawaf out of ignorance. Okay, so what should we do? No problem. Similar to the rule of somebody forgot. If you can come back to Makkah, pray it's in its location, do it. If you cannot, then just wherever you are, just do it wherever you are. So حكم طارئ جهلا كالناسي. حكم طارئ لصلاة الطواف جهلا حكم الناسي. Somebody has forgotten. ولا فرق بين الجاهل بين القاصر والمقصر. So remember yesterday we mentioned in Tawaf, yes, there is a difference between somebody who was ignorance unintentionally and someone who was ignorant and what is intentional ignorance? Many people, they say, what is intentional? It doesn't make any sense. Intentional ignorance is somebody who stays ignorant, who likes to stay ignorant. Okay, like what? Let me explain this. Somebody doubts What is the reaction when somebody doubts? Ask. He does not ask. Intentionally, he does not ask. It came in the mind. He blacked out his mind. He doesn't want to ask. So this kind of ignorance, he stayed ignorant intentionally. So we call it intentional ignorance. And the other one is unintentional. It never came into his mind. So he never doubted. He thought this is the right thing to do. And and another, the third scenario of unintentional ignorance. Somebody who has a question in the mind or wants to ask or wants to some guidance, but there is no one there to give guidance. There's no one there that you could ask. So in this case, what will happen that this is called unintentional. So unintentional is you don't doubt. And if you doubt, you try to ask and you don't find anybody. So you retain the ignorance, but you try your best. The unintentional, it never so unintentional also it never came into his mind. He was ignorant, and it never came into his mind that this could be this could be the obligation, not that way. So khalas, it never came into his mind, or it came into his mind, but he did not have proper people to ask, or he asked, but the people who answered him was not proper answer. So this is unintentional, that if he doubts, he tries. And if he does not doubt, then whatever doubt happens, those are the doubts of unintentional ignorance, because he did not choose to stay ignorant. He tried his best to ask, to find someone. Intentional ignorance, doubts, never asks. Scholars are available, resources are available, but he doesn't want to ask, he doesn't want to clarify his ignorance. Perfect. Yeah, so somebody who leaves, abandons the salat, okay, his rule is hukm al-nasi, rule of someone who forgot, and there is no difference between the jahil, bain al-qasir wal-muqassir. So somebody qasir, he is, and so we have qasir, muqassir. One of them is unintentional, one of them is intentional ignorance. Yeah. So we have few rulings of Salat al-Tawaf remaining. Then inshallah we'll keep the sa'i for tomorrow. إذا مات الشخص, somebody dies, let's bring our hyperbolic irfan guy. It has been a long time. We don't remember him. This guy, after doing this tawaf in a very hyper spiritual state, he got the awe and the shock and all kind of thing, and he could not tolerate. That's too loaded Irfanism. Oh my goodness, this tawaf, those. And somehow he gets heart attack and he dies without finishing Salat al-Tawaf. So إذا مات الشخص, if a person dies, وعليه صلاة الطواف, and he has to offer Salat al-Tawaf, but he's not anymore there. His Irfanism destroyed him. Hyperbolic Irfanism killed him. So anyhow, so what should he do? فَالْأَحْوَطُ وُجُوبًا, on the basis of obligatory precaution, and يَقْضِيَهَا, his guardian. The guardian should, what happened? Yeah. So on the basis of obligatory precaution, the heir should, the elder son. Remember the excused person, if somebody dies and was not able to pray obligatory salat and he was excused of missing those, then his elder son takes care of those, making up those. Bless the heart of anyone who's elder son. So مع توفر الشرائط, with the availability of the conditions mentioned in the chapter of salat. So this condition we had mentioned previously, and it's going to be mentioned in the chapter of Salah. So not every Salah missed by the parents or the father, the younger elder son needs to do qada. No. And so there are conditions, several conditions to consider the Salat um of the elder son on behalf of the father. Starting, the excuse is starting from somebody who was excused and did not abandon the salah deliberately or intentionally. Let's say this person had problem in his recitation. Like what? Like you say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Or you say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Like a ghareja. Like the Portuguese, they call the church ghareja. And the Urdu people, I heard them saying chirga, like church, they call it chirga. And the Portuguese, they call it ghareja, something like that. So anyhow, so let's say this person had lahan. That means he had problem in his recitation. Okay, either by the harakat, he will say Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahu Rabban. So grammatically messed up, for example, or the letters or harakat would not come out properly. إذا كان في قراءة المصلي لحن, if there was in the recitation of the praying person some errors. فإن لم يكن متمكنا من تصحيحها أجزاه قراءة الحمد على الوجه الملحوم. If he was not able to recite it properly in a proper way, then it would be sufficient to recite with the error. Okay. أجزاه قراءة الوجه على الوجه الملحون على الوجه الملحون. So Surah Al-Fatiha you can recite it with the improper recitation the way you know. إذا كان يحسن منها مقدارا, as long as he knows some of it, some of the recitation. فإن إذا كان في قراءة المصلي لحن فإن لم يكن متمكنا من تصحيحها أجزأه قراءة الحمد على الوجه الملحون. So the person can recite the Qira'ah Surah Al-Fatiha in an improper way, the way he's making errors. إذا كان يحسن منها مقدارا معتدا به, if he is able to offer some certain significant part of it properly, if he was able to. If he is not able to, فالأحوط وجوبا أن يضم إلى قراءة ملحونا قراءة شيء يحسنه من سائر القرآن وإلا في التسبيح. So let's say he is first he has to try to pray malhun, the one with the error in the pronunciation and the harakat. So if he is not able to fix it, خلاص, it will be sufficient for him to depend on this type of recitation. Now this is about the Salat al-Tawaf. إذا كان يحسن منها مقدارا معتدا به, if some part of it he was able to recite it properly. فالأحوط لزومان, on the basis of obligatory precaution, on the أن يضم إلى قراءة ملحونة قراءة شيء يحسنه من سائر القرآن وإلا التسبيح. So here are the stages. First of all, if he cannot fix it, his recitation has some errors, fix it. Okay. If he is not able to fix it, next stage, then read it, recite it the way it is scrambled. Okay. If he is able to recite some of it at least nicely, some significant of it nicely, then he should add to the qira'ah with the errors to the qira'ah or the surah or tasbih which he knows from the Quran. So here we understand that surah is the priority. What if the surah has problem, the pronunciation problem? try to fix it. You cannot fix it, you tried, you have to try because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is observing us. Try to fix it. Cannot fix it, then see, do you have some part of it, some part of the surah, which is a sufficient part, that you do not recite it with the errors? He says yes. So in that case, فَالْأَحْوَطُ وُجُبًا أَنْ يَضُمَّ إِلَى قِرَاءَتِهِ مَرْحُونَةً. So you combine what? The recitation with error with some other surahs of the Quran or other ayat of the Quran which he could recite nicely. So let's say the surah was not accepted, at least the Quranic, let's say if the original surah was not accepted, then the Quranic surahs, other surahs which he recites perfectly, they will be taking the place of the original surahs. What if that was not possible? He says, what that not possible? There has to be something possible. Something can be done. He says, if none of these are possible, fix it. Can't fix it, recite it with. Can't recite it the whole, recite some, then and add another surahs, you see, with Surah Al-Hamd, so that at least it can have a proper recitation. If that's also not feasible, then combine your qira'ah with mistakes with some of the surahs of the Quran which you know them better from heart. Okay, so this is what he's trying to say here in this ruling. مع توفر الشرائط المذكورة, and if all the conditions of what? Conditions of what? فالأحوط وجبا أن يقضيها عنه ولده الأكبر. We said this. I'm sorry, I got jumped up back to 330. It's 331. So مقدارا معتدا وإلا فالأحوط أن يضم, to combine, to add إلى قراءة ملحونة قراءة شيء يحسنه من سائر القرآن. Anything which you can recite properly from the Quran, add it to the messed up recitation. So recite two recitation. One, the recitation which you need to recite, trying your best on fixing the makhraj and everything. If not, then try to get someone else who could recite properly or teach you, for example. If not, then just recite with the errors. We don't call these errors, we call them like the way a person pronounce it, he has a problem, or certain harakats are not recited properly the way it should be. مقدار فالأحوط وجوبا أن يضم إلى قراءة ملحونة شيء منها يحسن من القرآن. يحسنه من سائر قراءة شيء يحسنه من سائر القرآن وإلا في التسبيح. Wherever in the Quran you find some things you know, read the equivalent to those ayat which you're supposed to recite in Salat al-Tawaf. Read equivalent to those ayat, something from the Quran which you can pronounce it properly. If that was not possible, then you have to do tasbih. إذا ضاق الوقت عن تعلم جميعه فإن تعلم ببعضه بمقدار معتد به قرأه. If let's say the time got narrowed, he's still not done tawaf. I mean, he's still not done salat al-tawaf because he's afraid. He's trying to find somebody who could help him. So the time is narrowing down. He has to do the sa'i. Remember, you can't leave a huge break of 2 days between your tawaf and your sa'i. So he realized before going to the sa'i, sorry, you have to fix it. Okay, then go to the sa'i. You cannot do sa'i before fixing it. But the time is narrowed. How much narrow? Can you pray 2 rakat and then go to the sa'i and still you'll have time for sa'i, or no? So if he can, then he has to pray before sa'i. And if he can't, then he's supposed to pray after the SAE. إذا ضاق الوقت عن تعلم جميعه. Either the time was short to learn all of it. فإن تعلم بعضه بمقدار معتاد. If he learns some of it, a significant amount of it, perfect, finish. If he does not learn some of it also, وإن لم يتعلم بعضه أيضا قرأ من سائر القرآن. Read anywhere from the Quran as long as you can read equivalent to the surah you are going to recite. أيضا قرأ من القراءة شيء من القرآن وإلا فالتسبيح. If you cannot do the Quran at all, do tasbih. Even while like Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. But shouldn't I be reciting surah? Yes, your surah is messed up, so we have to tell you to recite tasbih instead. See? So, إذا ضاق الوقت عن تعلم جميعه. If the time becomes short from learning the entire Salat al-Tawaf, فإن تعلم بعضه بمقدار معتد به. If he learns some of it in a significant amount of it that he could recite it in the Salat. وإن لم يتعلم فإن تعلم بعض مقدار معتد به قراءة. وإن لم يتعلم بعضه أيضا قراءة من سائر القرآن بمقدار يصدق عليه. وإن لم يتعلم بعضه أيضا قرأ من سائر القرآن. The whole idea is recite properly Surah Al-Fatiha and a short surah. If you cannot, it's difficult. So before going to translation, try to just see if you can recite it, okay, by looking, for example, or reciting any other surahs with this surah. So these are all stages to recite properly. You cannot recite, learn. You cannot learn, the time is narrow. Okay, then let someone at least teach you this minimum part, which the surah is very important. You cannot then just recite, combine between this surah, which is improper, and the salat with the tasbih. Yes, so this one, وَإِن لَمْ يَتَعَلَّمْ بَعْضُهُ أَيْضًا قَرَأَ مِنْ سَائِرِ الْقُرْآنِ. So even if he is not able to learn some of it, just open the Quran and read from it. Which that reading in common consideration would be the reading of the Quran. وَإِن لَمْ يَعْرِفْ أَجْزَأَهُ وَإِن لَمْ يَعْرِفْ أَجْزَأَهُ. And if he was not able to know at all, then tasbih will be sufficient. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallah. So if وإذا ضاق الوقت عن تعلم جميعه, if the time was narrowed from learning entire of it, فإن تعلم بعضه بمقدار معتد به. If someone learns part of it, sufficient amount of it, then he should read that part. وإن لم يتعلم بعضه أيضا قرأ من سائر القرآن. And then if you can't read the one you train, you can't read the one you practice, then read from any place in the Quran. بمقدار يصدق عليه قراءة القرآن عرفا. What should he recite from the Quran? The recitation that a common consideration considers it okay. بمقدار يصدق عليه, in amount the common consideration consider it that he has recited the Quran orphan. وإن لم يعرف أجزأه أن يسبح. And if he was not able to grasp anything from the Quran, tasbih is sufficient. Tasbih would be sufficient. Okay, what surah we are talking? Are we talking about Surah Al-Hamd or the short surah as well? So we are talking about Surah Al-Hamd, because لا صلاة إلا بفاتحة الكتاب. Salat is not valid without the opening, chapter of opening. So that's why the surah which we are talking here is Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Hamd. وأما السورة فالظاهر سقوط عن الجاهل بها مع العجز عن التعلم. As for short surah, apparently it is not required from the ignorant person who had an excuse from not learning. Circumstances did not allow him to learn. He wants to learn, but circumstances came and prevented him from learning the surah. ثم إنما ذكر حكم كل من لم يتمكن من القراءة الصحيحة وإن كان ذلك بسوء فهم باختياري. نعم، الخطوة الأولى في هذا الفرض أن يجمع بين الاتيان بالصلاة. So this is recommended precaution. I'm just going to skip it and read this and finish our session for today. إذا كان جاهل. Now he recites الرحمن الرحيم and like this kind of thing, but he doesn't know that this is wrong, because that's thinks this is the right way to pronounce. He might be, to this extent, he would say you all are wrong and I'm right. But you are reading odd way. That's fine. I'm reading it according to what I learned, that the namaz area should be like in the qibla, for example. So إذا كان جاهلا باللحن, he was ignorant that he thought that his recitation is good. في قراءته, he doesn't know that his recitation is wrong. وكان معذورا في جهله, and he was excused in his ignorance. So unintentional ignorance. Okay, so he's ignorant, but his ignorance is unintentional. ولا حاجة so صحت صلاته, his salah will be valid. ولا حاجة إلى الإعادة, there is no need for repeating it. وإن علم بذلك بطلت الصلاة. If he realizes after, sorry, so where did I go? إذا كان جاهلا باللحن, if he was ignorant about the errors in his recitation. وكان معذورا في جهله, and he was excused in his ignorance. That means he was unintentional ignorant. صحت صلاته, his salah will be all correct. ولا حاجة إلى الإعادة, and there's no need to redo that salah. وإن علم بعد الصلاة, even if he realized after salat that he had done some error in the قراءات. وما إذا لم يكن معذورا, as for somebody who is not excused, doesn't have an excuse in his ignorance, like intentional ignorance, فلازم عليه إعادتها بعد التصحيح. It is obligatory upon him, it is necessary upon him to repeat the surah after correcting it. ويجري عليه حكم تارك صلاة الطواف نسيانا. And if he does not fix, then the rule of someone who left the salat of tawaf out of forgetfulness will be applied upon him or her. These are few questions available on the website of Sayyid al-Sistani regarding the tawaf. And we'll stop here. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. So inshallah, we